As we delve into the world of school shooters, it is crucial to understand the complex web of factors that contribute to their actions. These individuals, often young and troubled, are driven by a myriad of motivations that culminate in unimaginable acts of violence.
Saying to pull the trigger, the killer's done, masturbates to memory.
Here are 5 school shooters reacting to life sentences. Nicholas Cruz. In the quiet town of Parkland, Florida, a storm was brewing beneath the surface of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Little did anyone know that this seemingly ordinary educational institution would soon become the site of one of the deadliest school shootings in American history. Our story begins with Nicholas Cruz, a troubled young man who had a troubled past. Born on September 24, 1998, Cruz had a tumultuous upbringing. He lost his father at a young age and was raised by his adoptive parents, Roger and Linda Cruz. However, his family life was far from stable, and he faced numerous challenges throughout his childhood. As Cruz grew older, his behavior became increasingly concerning. He displayed signs of aggression, struggled with mental health issues, and had a fascination with violence. Despite these warning signs, little was done to intervene and provide him with the help he so desperately needed. On February 14, 2018, tragedy struck. Armed with an AR-15 rifle, Cruz entered the halls of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, ready to unleash his anger and pain upon innocent students and staff. In a matter of minutes, chaos erupted as gunshots echoed through the hallways, shattering the lives of those present. The aftermath of the shooting was devastating. 17 lives were lost, and another 17 were forever changed by the physical and emotional scars they would carry. The nation mourned as the details of the horrific event unfolded, and questions arose about how such a tragedy could have been prevented. In the wake of the shooting, the legal process began to unfold. Nicholas Cruz was apprehended by law enforcement and charged with 17 counts of murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. The eyes of the nation turned to the courtroom as the trial commenced, seeking justice for the victims and their families. Broward Circuit Judge Elizabeth Scherer presided over the trial, ensuring that the proceedings adhered to the principles of justice. The trial was a somber and emotional affair, as victim impact testimony was heard over the course of 2 days. Families of the victims bravely took the stand, sharing their stories of loss, pain, and the lasting impact of Cruz's actions. Their testimonies were heart-wrenching as they expressed their anger and disappointment that Cruz would not face the death penalty. The families sought closure and a sense of justice that they believed could only be achieved through the ultimate punishment. However, the judge, bound by the laws of the state, could not grant their wish. Throughout the trial, Cruz remained stoic and emotionless, seemingly detached from the gravity of his actions. He sat in the courtroom wearing a red prison jumpsuit and eyeglasses, a stark reminder of the darkness that resided within him. At one point, a victim's mother called out his disrespectful behavior, prompting him to remove his mask. The trial concluded with the judge expressing her gratitude to the families for their strength and resilience throughout the process. She acknowledged the pain they had endured and the courage it took to share their stories. However, for many, the life sentence handed down to Cruz fell short of their expectations. They believed that it gave more weight to his life than to the lives of those he had taken. With the trial concluded, the time had come for Nicholas Cruz to face the consequences of his actions. Broward Circuit Judge Elizabeth Scherer, in a solemn and weighty moment, delivered the sentencing that would determine the course of Cruz's life. In a courtroom filled with tension and raw emotion, Judge Scherer imposed the statutorily mandated sentence upon Cruz. For each count of murder, Cruz was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The weight of his crimes would be felt for the rest of his days, as the sentences were to run consecutively. Additionally, Cruz was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 20 years to serve on 14 counts of attempted murder. The remaining 3 counts carried a sentence of life without parole. The severity of the punishment reflected the gravity of the harm he had caused and the lives he had forever altered. Under Florida law, Cruz would not be able to financially benefit from his crimes. The judge took further measures to ensure this by garnishing his commissary funds until all costs and restitution were paid. This decision aimed to prevent any possibility of Cruz profiting from the pain and suffering he had inflicted upon others. As the sentencing was handed down, the courtroom was filled with a mix of relief, anger, and disappointment. The families of the victims had hoped for a harsher punishment, one that would bring them a sense of closure and justice. They believed that the life sentence fell short of adequately addressing the magnitude of their loss. The sentencing marked the end of one chapter in this tragic story, but it also opened the door to a new phase of uncertainty. The future for Nicholas Cruz remained unclear as he would undergo physical and mental examinations before being placed in a prison facility. These examinations aimed to shed light on the motivations behind his actions and provide insight into the factors that contributed to this horrific event. For the victims and their families, the sentencing was a bittersweet moment. While they found solace solace in the fact that Cruz would spend the rest of his life behind bars, they also grappled with the reality that their loved ones would never return. The pain and grief they carried would be a lifelong burden, a constant reminder of the lives cut short. The sentencing also sparked a broader conversation about the justice system and its ability to address cases of mass violence. Some argued that the life sentence was a fitting punishment, ensuring that Cruz would never have the opportunity to harm others again. Others, however, believed that the death penalty should have been on the table, as they felt it was the only appropriate response to such a heinous crime. T.J. Lane.
Lane was sentenced for killing 3 teenagers in Chardon High School last year, and it was a shocking morning in the courtroom. T.J. Lane made quite a statement wearing a T-shirt that had the word killer on it.
In the all-American town of Chardon, Ohio, a dark cloud loomed over the life of Thomas Michael Lane III, better known as T.J. Lane. Raised in a home plagued by violence, Lane's childhood was far from idyllic. Lane's father, Thomas Lane Jr., had a disturbing history of violence against women, including Lane's own mother. Their tumultuous relationship resulted in numerous arrests for domestic violence, leaving scars both physical and emotional. As a consequence of their actions, Lane's parents lost custody of their son, and he was sent to live with his grandparents. It was hoped that this change would provide him with a stable and nurturing environment. However, the scars of his troubled upbringing ran deep. Lane's reserved nature and sad eyes hinted at the pain he carried within. Despite his troubled past, some saw glimpses of kindness in him. Haley Kovacic, a former classmate, described him as a very normal, just teenage boy who had a sad look in his eyes. Teresa Hunt, whose niece rode the bus with Lane, remembered him as a kind child who reached out to her niece when no one else would. But despite these moments of kindness, Lane struggled academically. He was labeled a reluctant learner and faced difficulties in traditional school settings. As a result, Lane was transferred to the Lake Academy Alternative School in the neighboring town of Willoughby, Ohio. It was hoped that this alternative educational environment would better cater to his needs. However, little did anyone know that the darkness within Lane was growing, and a tragedy of unimaginable proportions was about to unfold. The morning of February 27, 2012, started like any other day at Chardon High School. Students gathered in the cafeteria, chatting and preparing for their morning classes. But little did they know, their lives were about to be shattered by an act of unimaginable violence. At approximately 7:30 a.m., T.J. Lane, wearing a sweatshirt emblazoned with the word killer, stormed into the cafeteria, armed and filled with a chilling determination. Without warning, Lane opened fire, his bullets finding their targets among the unsuspecting students. Panic and chaos ensued as the sound of gunshots echoed through the cafeteria. Amidst the horror, 2 brave individuals, teacher Joseph Rizzi and coach Frank Hall, risked their own lives to tackle Lane, putting an end to his deadly spree. The survivors, forever scarred by the events that unfolded, identified Lane as the shooter. The evidence was clear, and his trial proceeded swiftly.
Well, a lot of people just were gasping, Leon, and as a reporter, you're supposed to just deliver the facts, but I got to tell you, one of the most bizarre moments in more than 20 years of covering sentences like this, as I tried to take notes after what he did, sick to my stomach and my hand was shaking. A lot of people had similar reactions.
However, it was Lane's behavior during the trial that shocked the nation. Wearing a white shirt with the word killer scrawled across it, he addressed the victims' families with profane imagery and displayed a complete lack of remorse. According to witnesses, Lane had a rivalry with one of his victims who began dating his ex-girlfriend. During his sentencing, he wore a shirt with the word killer on it. In a chilling moment, Lane raised his middle finger, callously taunting those who had lost their loved ones. While his motive remained unclear, the pain and anguish he caused were undeniable. The jury wasted no time in delivering their verdict. T.J. Lane was convicted of his heinous crimes and sentenced to 3 life sentences, 1 for each life he had taken. After his conviction, T.J. Lane was remanded to the Allen Correctional Institution in Lima, Ohio. However, his troubled nature persisted, even behind bars. Reports from the institution revealed a pattern of disciplinary issues. Lane's behavior included acts of self-mutilation, urinating on walls, and refusing to comply with assigned tasks. Then, on September 11, 2014, a shocking turn of events unfolded. Lane, along with 2 other inmates, managed to escape from the prison, sending shockwaves through the community once again. Fearing for the safety of the students, Chardon High School was immediately closed as authorities launched a manhunt to capture the escaped prisoners. Less than 24 hours later, Lane was apprehended without much fanfare, bringing a sigh of relief to the community. Today, Lane serves the remainder of his multiple life sentences at the Warren Correctional Institution in Youngstown, Ohio, a supermax prison known for its strict regulations and limited privileges. lives. Within the confines of the Supermax, Lane's schedule is highly restrictive, and he has far fewer privileges than before entering the prison system. As for the survivors of the Chardon High School shooting, their lives were forever altered by that tragic day. They continue to advocate for stricter gun laws and more severe penalties for school shooters. Coach Frank Hall, who bravely tackled Lane during the attack, founded the Coach Hall Foundation. This organization allows the survivors to share their stories at high schools across the country, hoping to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Devin Erikson. A horrifying chain of events unfolded in the quiet suburban town of Highlands Ranch, Colorado, that would forever change the lives of countless individuals. It was May 7, 2019, when the halls of STEM school Highlands Ranch were transformed into a scene of unimaginable terror. Devin Erikson, a troubled 18-year-old student, found himself at the center of this chilling narrative. As the days leading up to the shooting unfolded, signs of his inner turmoil began to surface. Friends and acquaintances noticed a change in his demeanor, a darkness that seemed to consume him. But what drove Erikson to commit such a heinous act? The answer to that question may never fully be understood. However, it is believed that a toxic combination of personal struggles, mental health issues, and a desire for infamy played a role in his descent into darkness. On that fateful day, Erikson, along with his accomplice Alec McKinney, entered the school armed with a cache of weapons. Chaos erupted as gunshots rang out, shattering the once peaceful atmosphere. Panic and fear gripped the students and staff as they scrambled to find safety. Kendrick Castillo, a brave and selfless student, made the ultimate sacrifice. Without hesitation, he charged at the gunman, giving his classmates precious seconds to escape. Tragically, Kendrick lost his life in the process, but his heroic action saved countless others. As the dust settled and the authorities arrived, the full extent of the horror became apparent. Kendrick Castillo lay lifeless, and 8 others were left wounded, their lives forever scarred by the events that unfolded within the walls of STEM school Highlands Ranch. Devin Erikson's role in this tragedy was undeniable. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and in June of 2019, he was convicted of all 46 charges brought against him. The weight of his crimes hung heavy in the courtroom as victims and their families shared their harrowing stories. Nikia Thomas, a mother whose child had been shot, took the stand, her voice trembling with a mixture of grief and anger. She recounted the harrowing moments when her daughter was in algebra class, unaware of the impending danger. The gunman had stormed in and chaos erupted. Nikia vividly remembered the phone call from her daughter, her voice filled with fear and uncertainty, both of her legs bleeding, the bullet dangerously close to her fibular artery. The trauma of that day was forever etched in their memories. One by one, the survivors had stepped forward, their voices quivering as they recounted the horrors they had endured. They spoke of the sleepless nights haunted by nightmares, the constant fear that lingered in their hearts. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, had become an unwelcome companion, a constant reminder of the day their lives were shattered. Amidst the emotional testimonies, the parents of Kendrick Castillo, John, and Maria Castillo stood united in their grief. Their words carried the weight of a love lost, a future stolen. Maria's voice had cracked as she described Kendrick as her life, her best friend, someone she loved more than life itself. She would have traded places with him in an instant, knowing he had so much to live for. John's voice trembled as he spoke of the indescribable mix of emotions that consumed him: hate, anger, pain, and an overwhelming sadness that never faded. Their lives were forever altered, their hearts forever broken. The courtroom was filled with tears and raw emotion as Allison Thompson, a fellow student, took the stand. She vividly recalled the moment she heard the devastating words, "Kendrick hadn't made it." Her world froze and she fell to her knees, forever changed. She shared the pain of calling her mother, not knowing if she would survive, and the phantom pains that served as a constant reminder of the bullets that had pierced her leg, inflicted by someone she once trusted. These testimonies painted a vivid picture of the profound impact this tragedy had had on the lives of those affected. The pain, the loss, and the shattered sense of security were palpable. The courtroom stood as a testament to the resilience of the survivors and the unwavering love of the families left behind. As the judge listened to these heart-wrenching stories, the weight of the decision ahead became apparent. The sentence to be handed down would not only serve as justice for the victims, but also send a powerful message about the consequences of such horrific acts. The tension in the courtroom had reached its peak as the judge prepared to deliver the long-awaited verdict. All eyes were on Devin Erikson, who sat motionless, his fate hanging in the balance. The judge's voice resonated through the room as he began to pronounce the sentence. With a stern tone, the judge had handed down a life life sentence without the possibility of parole for Devin Erikson. The weight of the crimes committed, the lives lost, and the pain inflicted on the survivors and their families was reflected in this severe punishment. But the judge's ruling didn't end there. In addition to the life sentence, the judge imposed hundreds of additional years in prison, ensuring that Erikson would spend the rest of his days behind bars. The magnitude of the sentence served as a stark reminder of the gravity of his actions and the irreparable damage caused. As the courtroom absorbed the judge's ruling, emotions ran high. Some found solace in the justice served, while others grappled with the realization that no sentence could truly undo the pain and loss they had endured. The road to healing was long and arduous, and the scars left by this tragedy would forever remain. Outside the courtroom, the impact of the sentencing reverberated. Through the community, the families of the victims, though relieved by the verdict, continued to grapple with their grief. Life would never be the same for them, as they navigated a world forever altered by the actions of Devin Erikson. Meanwhile, the survivors, though scarred, found strength in their resilience. They came together, supporting one another through the healing process, determined to move forward and reclaim their lives. The journey towards recovery was marked by therapy, support groups, and a collective determination to rise above the darkness that once consumed them. The sentencing of Devin Erikson served as a powerful reminder of the urgent need for prevention, mental health support, and a collective effort to address the underlying issues that contribute to such tragedies. It was a call to action, a plea to ensure that no more lives were lost to senseless acts of violence. Sky Bush.
Do you feel sorry? Do you feel remorseful?
Yeah. That's why I put down the gun. I could have kept going. There was no officers there.
It was a seemingly ordinary day, with students going about their daily routines, unaware of the impending nightmare that awaited them. Suddenly, the sound of a gunshot pierced the air, sending shockwaves through the building. Panic ensued as students and teachers scrambled to find safety, their lives forever changed in an instant. Bush, driven by motives that may never fully be understood, fired a single shot through a classroom door, injuring an innocent student. The terror that gripped the school was palpable as the realization of what had just occurred sank in. The immediate priority became the safety and well-being of the students and staff. Within moments, the school was evacuated, and parents anxiously gathered outside, desperate for any news about their children's safety. The community was thrust into a state of fear and uncertainty, grappling with the aftermath of this senseless act of violence. Law enforcement swiftly responded to the scene, working tirelessly to secure the area and ensure the safety of everyone involved. The investigation into the incident began, piecing together the events that led to this horrifying act. The school, once a place of learning and growth, now stood as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk within our society. As news of the shooting spread, the nation watched in disbelief. Yet another school shooting leaving its mark on the collective consciousness. The incident reignited the ongoing debate surrounding gun control and the safety of our schools. Questions were raised about how such a tragedy could occur and what measures could be taken to prevent future acts of violence. Following the shocking incident at Ocala Forest High School, the wheels of justice began to turn. Sky Bush, the perpetrator of this heinous act, found himself facing a legal battle that would determine the consequences of his actions. Bush, a Crystal River man, stood before the court, charged with multiple offenses that reflected the severity of his crimes. These charges included the discharge of a firearm on school property, possession of a short-barrel gun, and burglary of a structure with a firearm. The weight of these charges hung heavy in the courtroom as the community sought justice for the victims and their families. In a surprising turn of events, Bush pleaded no contest to the charges brought against him. This plea indicated that he did not admit guilt, but acknowledged that the evidence presented by the prosecution would likely lead to a conviction. It was a decision that would have far-reaching implications for his future. The court, in its pursuit of justice, handed down a sentence that would serve as a stern reminder of the consequences of Bush's actions. He was sentenced to a 30-year prison term, ensuring that he would be removed from society for a significant portion of his life. This sentence aimed to provide a sense of closure and a measure of justice for the victims and their loved ones. In addition to the prison term, Bush was also ordered to serve 30 years of probation, further restricting his freedom and ensuring that he would be closely monitored upon his release. The court recognized the need for rehabilitation and mandated that Bush undergo a mental health evaluation, acknowledging the importance of addressing the underlying issues that led to this tragic event. Furthermore, Bush was prohibited from having any contact with the victim, visiting public schools, owning weapons, and seeking early termination from probation. These restrictions were put in place to safeguard the community and prevent any further harm. The sentencing hearing was was attended by Buch's grandmother, a poignant reminder of the impact this case had on not only the victims, but also the families of those involved. State Attorney Bill Gladson, who played a pivotal role in prosecuting the case, emphasized the importance of child safety and the need for zero tolerance when it comes to gun violence. The plea deal and subsequent sentencing were the result of careful deliberation between Buch's lawyer, the prosecution, and the court. Concerns were raised about the evidence and Buch's understanding of the case, leading to the decision to pursue a plea deal rather than going to trial. Caleb Sharp.
I spent a lot of time thinking, what exactly would I say? Now that I'm here, I can see if there is anything that there's really only one thing I can say, and that's I'm sorry.
It was a day filled with tension and anticipation as the courtroom awaited the sentencing of Caleb Sharp. After a long and difficult legal battle, Spokane County Superior Court Judge Michael Price finally delivered his verdict. Sharp, now 20 years old, had pleaded guilty to aggravated murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of assault. The weight of his actions hung heavy in the air as the proceedings began. On September 13, 2017, Sharp arrived at Freeman High School armed with multiple weapons. In a horrifying act of violence, he opened fire on his classmates, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. Sam Strahan, a brave and heroic teenager, lost his life that day, while 3 girls were left injured and countless others traumatized. As the courtroom watched the surveillance footage of the Freeman High School shooting, a heavy silence fell upon the room. Amy Strahan, Sam's mother, sat in the front row, her eyes fixed on the screen. She couldn't bear to look away as the footage showed her son following Sharp down the second-floor hallway, unaware of the danger that awaited him. The room held its breath as Sam collapsed to the ground, a victim of Sharp's senseless violence. Amy Strahan, overcome with grief, covered her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. Beside her, Emily, Sam's sister, offered comfort and support, their bond unbreakable in the face of tragedy. Sharp, on the other hand, remained stoic, showing no visible reaction to the video that played out his heinous actions. Behind him, his parents, Ben and Erica Sharp, closed their eyes, perhaps unable to bear the weight of their son's actions. The courtroom was filled with a mix of emotions, sorrow, anger, and a longing for justice. The victims' families, along with the community, had endured a 5-year ordeal waiting for this moment. They hoped that the sentencing would bring some closure and a sense of justice for the lives forever changed by Sharp's actions. Randy Russell, the Freeman School District Superintendent, released a statement expressing the community's relief that the case was finally over. He commended the resilience and strength of the students, staff, and parents who had faced unimaginable challenges throughout this ordeal. The statement emphasized the community's gratitude for the love and support they had received and their determination to move forward, remaining Freeman strong. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with emotion as Judge Michael Price prepared to deliver the sentence. He spoke at length, addressing the misinformation and misunderstandings surrounding the case and the available sentencing options. Price offered his condolences to the victims and the Freeman community, acknowledging that no words could truly provide comfort for the pain they had endured. Judge Price emphasized that the sentence he was about to deliver would not bring back the lives lost or heal the wounds inflicted. However, he hoped that it would provide some measure of closure for the victims and their families. Price also acknowledged the impact of Sam Strahan's life, stating that it was clear Sam had the potential to achieve great things. Judge Price placed the blame solely on Caleb Sharp for his actions, but he also noted that there were missed red flags by Sharp's parents in the school. He highlighted the rapidly evolving laws surrounding juvenile sentencing, which prevented a life sentence without the possibility of parole in this case. This ruling came as a disappointment to those who had called for a more severe punishment. Sharp's public defender, Brooke Foley, argued that his age and immaturity at the time of the shooting should be taken into consideration. Foley advocated for a sentence below the standard range, emphasizing the importance of rehabilitation and the chance for Sharp to live a meaningful life after his incarceration. She urged the court to focus on the law and not give in to demands for retribution. Deputy Prosecutor Sharon Headland agreed that Sharp should be considered a youthful offender, but she stressed the need for community safety. Headland argued that a 35-year sentence, along with the requirement of a review board, would be more appropriate. She expressed concerns about Sharp's continued concerning behavior and the need for assurance that he would receive treatment before re-entering society. After carefully considering all the factors at play, Judge Price delivered his sentence. He acknowledged the significant mitigating factors such as Sharp's age, immaturity, mental health condition, and personality traits. However, he believed that the recommended 35-year sentence was not proportional to the severity of Sharp's crimes. In a surprising move, Judge Price sentenced Sharp to spend 40 years in prison, ensuring that the sentence would withstand appeal. Caleb Sharp, the Freeman school shooter, took the opportunity to address the victims, their families, and the entire community. It was the first time he publicly expressed remorse for his actions. Sharp's voice trembled as he spoke, his words carrying the weight of the pain and devastation he had caused. "There's only really one thing that I can say," Sharp began, "and that is, I am sorry. That day showed me the true cost of evil. Everything that this community had to pay, my own family had to pay. From that point on and now, evil has no place in my heart." If you enjoyed this video, click on the card on your screen for more content like this. See you next time.